with week 13, Thanksgiving week, all wrapped up this past week. We got a better look at the playoff picture coming out of this week, and we're back from our 1 week hiatus, and it's good to be back.
Definitely. I mean, and the funny thing is Shane, with us being gone for just a little bit, it almost seems like the entire outline of what the playoffs could be come January has changed somewhat. There's been a lot of shifting within the seeding in both the AFC and the NFC, and that's something we're really excited to get into tonight, huh?
Yeah, the standings around the NFL have changed a bit, and there's some people knocking on the door, some people taking out the top seed of other divisions. Like this past week, 2 weeks since we took that hiatus has been an interesting one in the NFL overall.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, and so I guess before we really dive into it, I mean, again, for those who are just tuning in, we're coming back after a 2 week hiatus, as Shane said. Welcome to our episode, our sixth episode of our podcast for the fans. We're glad that you could join us. Here we discuss the scoops, the stats, and upcoming games in the National Football League. Our hope is as this podcast grows in viewership, we'll branch out into some other sports, particularly the NBA. But for us here at the beginning, let's talk about the amazing sport of football and how this current 2019 through 2020 season of the NFL will play out. For those of you listening, thank you for joining us on this fun little experience we're starting out here. A reminder, we called this podcast for the fans because we want the fans to voice their opinions about the current affairs in the National Football League. If you have anything that you would like to say or for us to discuss, feel free to drop in on the chat bar. We'd love to answer questions, and we love to have discussions about what people have to say. This isn't just what Shane and I bring to the table. This is what all of us as fans bring to the table. And again, thank you for joining us. We hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we are ready to get started. Back into it.
Definitely. So where do you want to pick up to start this episode off?
Well, the interesting thing is normally, Shane, what we do is, we go through all the previous games of the week. But with our little break that we've had here, there's no way I feel like we can adequately go through all the games from the past two previous weeks, right?
Right. I mean, we gotta shorten some things here and there, as much as we want to. If you guys really want get our thoughts on everything, we can definitely take that to our Discord or put that in the chat. But probably Discord work best because we can answer that not on the stream and talk more about that. And we actually got Duckmaster already coming in saying, should the Panthers have fired Ron Rivera? I have my personal take on it. I know what I'm gonna say. McKay, what do you think? Do you think the Panthers should have fired him?
Duck, thanks for joining us. I was really hoping that someone would bring that up because that was a little something that before this news had actually dropped after we had already put together our script for the podcast this week, and it was a little bit of a shock, somewhat to say, but at the same time, I also think it was somewhat coming. There's been a lot of talk that the Panthers have only had a few winning seasons since Rivera became the coach in 2011. Now the question was, do I think that the Panthers made the right choice in getting rid of Rivera? Yes and no. Yes, because Rivera clearly wasn't working out for the Panthers from what we could see. Yes, they did manage to make it to the Super Bowl a few years back. I understand they didn't win, but other than that, there haven't been too many winning seasons, and it might be time for somewhat of a rebuild in Carolina. And the reason that I say no, it wasn't a good idea is because of that rebuild. I feel like with Ron Rivera gone, with him going, so does Cam Newton. He will go as well. I feel like this is his last season in Carolina, and most of the rebuild that they are trying to put together here in Carolina for this next season is going to revolve around MVP candidate Christian McCaffrey. Shane, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are very interesting. I think Ron Rivera is a good coach. Like you said, he took them to the Super Bowl. He has done a lot of good things. It only feels like as of recently that it's kind of fallen down, and a lot of that, they lost their starting quarterback this season, so Cam Newton was out. The debate there is he really good? Is he bad? I'm just going to leave that in the air because we didn't really see him much of this season. But like you said, Christian McCaffrey is the person to build around. I think they are kind of hitting that weird awkward phase because they have a lot of really good players where they can easily make a push if they find the right pieces that they are looking for. And I think Rivera could have pushed them through with that. But overall, I think Ron Rivera probably in his best interest is. I think I'm with you. It's a yes and no. Me personally, I kind of want him to come to Jacksonville because I think he'd be a lot better coach than what we have now.
Shots fired at Doug Marrone.
I'm sorry, but the whole coaching staff of Jaguars needs to be reevaluated and done, and something needs to be done somewhere with them. Ron Rivera, I think, has a lot of potential as a coach. He's a high risk, high reward kind of coach, and some teams will really benefit from that high risk, high reward mentality that he would bring to the table.
Right. And I think the last thing that we can touch on this, just to kind of further answer your question, Duck, is how do I put this? I feel like the cards were stacked against the Panthers this year with Cam Newton getting injured and kind of taking a lot of the wind out of their sails. Yes, Christian McCaffrey kind of tried to bring it back in there, but as we've seen recently, Kyle Allen has sputtered, and he hasn't really been able to carry that offense. And Christian McCaffrey, almost the exact same thing. But the interesting thing is we're seeing that with a lot of teams this year. The Bears, the Eagles, the Chargers. They've kind of just faltered and have not really lived up to the expectations that a lot of people had for them back in the preseason. Do I think that the Panthers could have survived with Rivera as coach? Yes, but they probably only would have been able to make an 8-win, 8-loss record.
Yeah, I agree with you on pretty much all of that, so I say we could move on that unless there's any more questions with the whole Ron Rivera thing, but I think we're good to move on from there.
I think so too. Just a little bit of a heads up before we go into this for all of our listeners. As we said before, we can't go into all of the games here. So what we decided to do is we're going to be taking the games that have the biggest significant impact on the playoffs. So we're going to be going through those games, talking about some of the highlights and how it could affect the seeding of the playoffs. So we again apologize for some of the games that involve some of the teams that we already know aren't going to make playoffs. We're kind of moving away from that, as we said in the past little while, and we are focusing a lot on these playoff teams. That doesn't mean we're not going to go back to them because, again, I mean, Shane's team and my team are both not going to make the playoffs, most likely.
So we're probably going to talk about them either way.
Exactly. It will come up at some point, but for right now, we are focusing on some big games from the past 2 weeks. So, Shane, let's dive into our first one. It was the Packers versus 49ers game 2 weeks ago on Sunday Night Football.
Right, and I just want to say, so let's throw our predictions out real quick. I said 29-28 49ers. You said 26-24 Packers.
Mm-hmm.
Final score was 37-8 49ers.
It was a huge shock, to say the least.
I just want to say, I expected it to be like a high-scoring game, but I expected both teams to score high, and especially the Packers to do pretty well, but they just came in and basically died under the 49ers.
No one expected it to be so one-sided, Shane, and I agree with you. I think in this point, we kind of saw that, yes, Aaron Rodgers has flashes of brilliance, but in this case, it was really impressive to see that number one defense from San Francisco just light the Packers up. I mean, that was brutal to watch.
Yeah, and that's even impacting the standings a little bit because I'm trying to think, and I'm actually looking right now. That puts the Vikings pretty close to them with that loss, with the loss the Packers suffered that week. And then this week, we'll get into it later, but the race between them is pretty darn close right now.
What I've been able to gather, if the Vikings do want to overtake the Packers for that third seed and for the NFC North title, the Packers are going to have to lose, in this case, to either Washington, who they play next week, the Bears, who they play the following week, as well as the Detroit Lions in their final week.
No offense to the Bears or anything, but it seems like the Packers kind of got a pretty easy end of the year routine going on.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think with all three of those teams, the one that's most likely to beat them is the Bears, and that is not saying much.
Yeah, I was going to say the Bears sound the most likely, and
that's not very. Those aren't good odds.
No offense to the Bears, but that's scary if that's your best bet.
Those are not good odds for this Minnesota Vikings team. I think they might want to stick with the wild card seed. But moving away from the Vikings, as we'll get into them later, the question that I want to ask you, Shane, is do you think the Packers are Super Bowl worthy? Do you think that they are going to be able to contend in playoffs when we get there with these other teams like San Francisco and Seattle and New Orleans who are just lighting up these other teams? Do you think that Matt LaFleur in his first year coaching is going to be able to tackle those odds? or do you think they'll probably do a first round exit?
Do I think that they are Super Bowl worthy? No. Do I think that they can put up a fight in the playoffs? Yes, but they will probably... If they do not win... So if they play in the wild card, which they most likely will, I think they'll win the wild card and then lose in the second round. But other than that, I don't really see them going out too much further than that.
The way I see it is if they do end up taking the third seed, which it seems highly likely at this point because you have two dominant first round bye seedings that's either going to be between the NFC South and the NFC West. I don't see the Packers really catching up to that. And we know kind of what a dumpster fire the NFC East is right now.
I was going to say, and then we have the Cowboys who are just barely hanging on.
Yeah, but which would mean the Packers would play the Vikings, which I think will actually make for a very good wild card game.
Oh, that would be an amazing game.
Yeah, so we'll just have to see what happens there. But then that just leads me to my last question from this one. I know we haven't really talked about the 49ers so much, but we'll get into them later. But as far as the Vikings and the Packers go, do you think the Vikings could beat out the Packers in a wild card game?
I think the Vikings could honestly take it. As long as Kirk Cousins stays doing what he's been doing the past couple of times and staying on that pretty decent streak, I think he could knock out the Packers if it came down to it.
I'm going to take it one step further past just Kirk Cousins himself. He needs a fully healthy Dalvin Cook and two fully healthy receivers in Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, you make a good point with that. I would say if the Vikings are fully healthy, I think it's very easy for them to run over the Packers.
Which to be honest, again, nothing against Aaron Rodgers. I actually have a lot of respect for him, but I would not mind seeing the Vikings do that. I think they kind of need another big break after getting a huge loss handed to them, to the Eagles.
Definitely. So do you want to move on to 49ers or move on to the next game? Because I think the main thing with this game is that 49ers just absolutely dominating. Like we said, they've been good and people have been doubting them, and just don't doubt them completely.
I think there's nothing more to say there. We'll kind of get more into them later on because they will show up in another one of our games here. I think what we need to do, Shane, we can cover these two fairly quickly, but we need to go over two of the Thanksgiving Day games. We don't need to go over the Bears and Lions game. Neither of those two are going to the playoffs. We do need to go over the Bills versus Cowboys game and the Saints versus Falcons. So let's start with the Bills and the Cowboys.
Bills and Cowboys. So it's very interesting because Bills are running pretty well right now, and I think they have a chance to overtake the Patriots for the AFC East title. Is it likely? No, but they can at least get a wild card spot. And we predicted for this game, and I am pissed because I came so close to this game. I said 24-14 Bills, and the actual score was 26-15 Bills. This game was interesting to watch because, one, it keeps the Cowboys down a little bit for the rest of the NFC East to catch up, and it also boosts the Bills up into the playoff spot potentially.
I agree. With the Bills, yes, it definitely gave them a nice little cushion for that wild card spot against other teams that are hoping to clamor for a wild card, such as the Steelers or the Raiders. Excuse me. On the flip side with the Cowboys, for me watching this game, the biggest thing that I could see is those turnovers. I believe there were 3 turnovers that killed the Cowboys in this one. And I mean, probably the biggest thing that's coming to mind here from watching that game is before the game was even over, Jerry Jones walked out. He was done.
Oh, yeah. I think that's going to be one of the biggest talks is that their man walked out of the building.
And that bodes even worse for Coach Jason Garrett. We've heard plenty of times this year that this is Jason Garrett's last year in Dallas. Shane, what do you think? With a 6-6 record and the fact that you're still going to make the playoffs, but only barely because the rest of your division is so terrible?
You know, it comes down to this. Do you really fire a coach who got you to the playoffs, or do you fire a coach because you're sits and number 1 seat in your division right now? Like, it's kind of the coin flip. I would say it might be his time. It might be done. But he's done it's like Ron Rivera. He did good at the beginning, but now he's kind of just started to lose some of his edge, and I don't know if he has a future as a head coach, but I think his time in Dallas may be over.
I think the best way to describe it is I would have to look at how many seasons Garrett has been with Dallas, but from what I know, they've only managed to win 2 playoff games ever. That's not good odds as far as if this is the coach, if this is the guy to take you farther. And so with that, I would have to agree with you. Jason Garrett's time with the Dallas Cowboys is over. And really the only thing that we can say for Dallas, actually, they're in prime position to likely take the NFC East. The only team that could compete with them would be the Philadelphia Eagles, and they lost to the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. That's pretty embarrassing for that entire division, but that is the way that it is. And with that, we will probably see whoever Dallas has to play in the wild card round is whichever team gets the wild card spot for the NFC West. Okay, that's either Seattle or San Francisco. Yeah, the Cowboys are toast.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the Cowboys aren't gonna go very far.
Let's move on to the Saints versus Falcons. The biggest part of that we need to talk about is the Saints clinching their playoff spot and also claiming the number 1 seed after events that happened this weekend. Shane, you want to go into the predictions a little bit? Because I got a little bit more to go after that.
So, I said for prediction 27-24 Saints. I was thinking it was going to be a little bit close because Falcons were doing pretty well, and then they choked against Buccaneers. They didn't do well against the Saints. Final score was 26-18 with the Saints taking it. Overall, Taysom Hill lit the Falcons up that day.
Another guy that I might want to bring up, I can't remember his name, but he's that guy that defender who stiff-armed Matt Ryan and just pounded his face to the dirt. That was Matt Ryan.
Man.
The only thing that I can say here, because again, we've talked about the Saints. We've talked about they are in a good position right now because they have the 1 seed, the first round bye. They are the first team within the entire NFL to clinch their playoff spot. And I think that game, the MVP of that Thanksgiving Day game, as you mentioned, was Taysom Hill. Now, this is fun because I was actually watching this game at my in-laws' place. My in-laws are very large fans of Brigham Young University, where Taysom Hill played quarterback. And now he's playing as what they call the Swiss Army knife quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. Shane, the question that I want to ask you is we've seen that, Taysom Hill is a very capable quarterback and he's a very capable player in the NFL. Should Drew Brees move on from the New Orleans Saints, which has been something that has come up this season, do you think that Sean Payton should hold on to Teddy Bridgewater and make him the quarterback or start Taysom Hill as the starting QB?
See, here's my thing. Why are you even taking Drew Brees out? He is one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. He's been consistent. The only problem that he has had is that he's been injured this season. Outside of that, he's been a dominant quarterback. He hasn't shown that age that certain other quarterbacks, Tom Brady, have been showing as of late. I think there's no point in getting rid of him now, although you might want to start shopping Teddy Bridgewater around and have Taysom Hill as that person right behind Brees to take over for when Brees decides to hang it up.
The reason I bring that up, Shane, is, again, I'm not saying, Drew Brees is leaving. We don't know that. If I had to kind of bring up an argument for what you were saying of, why take Drew Brees out, it could be maybe because the Saints are trying to basically get all they need out of him before he starts to decline. Like, as you said, Tom Brady hasn't been having a good season. And another older quarterback who has not had a good season this year is Phillip Rivers. I wonder if maybe, they're thinking, okay, maybe we need to move on to a younger quarterback, get him kind of in there, because Drew Brees, yes, he's still good, but because he's getting older, he's getting injured a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying that's how it is, but I do agree with you that this is my take on it, actually, is I think that Teddy Bridgewater should be the Saints starting quarterback when Drew Brees decides to retire. And Taysom Hill would be very effective in the position that he already is, backside, but working as a very lethal tight end or receiver.
I can honestly see that working pretty well for the New Orleans Saints, is that Teddy Bridgewater eventually comes in, because as we saw when he took over for Drew Brees earlier in the season.
He never lost a game.
Oh, for the game, yeah. But he still did pretty well.
That's what I'm saying, is with Bridgewater as the starting QB, Teddy Bridgewater never lost a game. He was undefeated the entire time that he was playing as the starting QB for the Saints.
That's true. Like,
well, I mean,
I think you make a good point. I might change my mind to agree with you. I honestly think, knowing that, it's like, it's a tough goal. Keep Taysom Hill where he is, because he seems to be doing fine with whatever the heck he's doing right now.
In this Swiss Army knife quarterback, yeah.
I mean, he can throw. We know that he can throw the ball. We know he can run. We know he can catch. Like, he's got kind of everything that you want in a player. And maybe just having that dedicated quarterback will be able to let him solidify in being that Swiss Army knife where he's going to run it, or he's going to go out for a pass, or heck, maybe they do like a flea flicker and Bridgewater goes out for a catch and Hill throws it near perfectly because he is a trained quarterback.
That'll be a play that the defense might not be able to read correctly. I think that's a big reason why Sean Payton likes Taysom Hill so much in the position that he is right now. I think that's probably enough to move on from us, kind of drooling over the Saints and their position right now. They're in a very good position right now, probably one of the best in the NFL. But we should move on to our next game, Shane. And this is something that you and I have brought up before. And I actually said it earlier in this podcast that I think this could be the Super Bowl matchup. And it did happen this Sunday between the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers.
That's
Shane,
right.
Do you think that could be it? Do you think it could be Lamar Jackson and his Ravens, who seem to have the best offense in the league, if you ask me, not the Cowboys, even though they're ranked number 1, versus the best defense in the league, which is in the San Francisco 49ers?
I like that you brought up that your prediction was the 49ers. My prediction was the 49ers' biggest rival, who actually beat them earlier this season as of right now, the Seattle Seahawks.
Which I might agree with you more at this point.
So, my main thing, I'm very confident in saying I think the Ravens are probably the best. If you had to bet money right now, today, on who is going to the Super Bowl for the AFC, I would say the Ravens are probably the best bet as of right now.
Uh-huh.
As for the NFC, I think it's going to come down between the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks for being who goes to the Super Bowl. Overall, so actually...
I wouldn't count out the Saints either.
Yeah, because these games are really good to watch. It's really good teams. It feels like a Super Bowl game when watching them. Overall, I said 35-32 Ravens. Final score is 2017 Ravens. I think the Ravens honestly might be the best team in the NFL. It's hard to contain Lamar Jackson, and when you do contain him, somebody else on their offense just explodes, and guess what? You don't need to worry about Lamar Jackson anymore because somebody else is doing his job for him.
Exactly. And some people may say this here, and I don't know if I quite agree with it yet, but I think at this point, the weather that was going on during that game is probably what stopped Lamar Jackson more than the 49ers defense.
But I will say, it's not like the 40... So let's back up and quit drooling over the Ravens. The 49ers did not do bad against this Raven team. They did it really solid. And in all honesty, it just basically came down to... It came down to the kicker, Justin Tucker, who is phenomenal.
He is the best kicker in the NFL.
And if it wasn't for the Ravens having him, I think the 49ers could have won this game, but with that good of a kicker and that good of an offense, it is hard to pick another side. Even though the 49ers put up a strong, good fight, this was definitely a hard game to call down to the wire.
I could not agree more. I mean, it was a great game. We'll just have to see if it maybe does come down to these two teams again when they go head-to-head in the Super Bowl. But we don't know. I agree with you from what you said. It looks like the Ravens will be the team from the AFC, and we'll just have to see what team it is from the NFC.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to move on to the next game?
Let's keep these next few games. I got the next 4 games. We're going to try and get through them fairly quickly because these ones aren't necessarily playoff games. They're just something I think that we need to mention as far as does this shake up seeding at all. This first one, I'm going to get through really quick. It was the Tennessee Titans versus the Indianapolis Colts. Shane, your prediction was 28-14 with the Colts taking it. It was 31-17 with the Titans. To make the joke here, the Titans, we remember them.
Why? Why did you do that?
But the reason that I bring that up is because it kind of holds true right now. They are still kind of trying to stay in this race. Yeah, they probably won't get in because the Texans still hold the number 1 spot, but they're fighting for it. Whereas the Colts, I feel like they're kind of out of the race. I feel like, and I'm going to blame most of that on Adam Vinatieri with him continually missing all of his kicking chances. Anyway,
Old man kicker is not always the best
because Vinatieri is so good. But sorry, what was that?
Old man kickers are not always the best. And I just want to point out, you're saying the Colts are out. You got to remember, the AFC South, except for my Jaguars now, sadly, I'm kind of just saying that they're done. The Texans are 8-4. Titans are 7-5. Colts are 6-6. There's still a lot of games left to be played, and if I remember right, most, if not all of them, have a division rival game in the last few games that they have.
Right, and I'm not saying that the Colts are out. I'm not saying that their playoff chances are dead and gone. What I'm saying here is it seems more like that position, that title for the AFC South, is less now between the Texans and the Colts and more between the Texans and the Titans, if you ask me.
Yeah, I can definitely see why you would think that. I think the Texans are going to take it either way. Titans and Colts are probably just going to try to fight for a wild card spot if they can.
Yep, I think that's a good way to put it. And with that, speaking of wild card positions, Shane, let's just jump right into the next game, which was the Browns versus the Steelers, a little bit of the ugly rematch after the Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph situation here. A lot of stuff being talked about, a lot of people on both sides wearing shirts that were all, taking little jabs at each other. But the biggest thing that needs to come out of this, Shane, is the Steelers won out, and with the Raiders losing terribly to the Chiefs, that's one of our next games that we're going to be talking about, the Steelers are in the best position right now to take that final wild card spot in the AFC. Let's react to that, Shane, because the Steelers were not looking good earlier this season when Roethlisberger went down, when Mason Rudolph came up to be QB1, and now he's out, and now we have Duck Hodges in there, and it feels like it's just been this crazy roller coaster ride going on at Pittsburgh, and yet Coach Tomlin has still managed to steer this ship pretty well to keep them into playoff contention.
I think the interesting thing about this, I know that we have talked about it, and I think it was on one of our very first episodes of the podcast where we were talking about the Steelers and how they were looking, and we kept saying, yikes, they are doing bad. We feel bad for the fans of this team because they are not doing well. I feel like ever since we have said that, they've just been showing up more and more and more, and I do think that they have a valid fight to take that last wildcard spot, but they gotta get past the Raiders, the Titans, and potentially even the Colts to get that playoff spot for them.
Here's the thing, Shane, and I'm gonna kind of dive into a little bit and have this segue with the Raiders and the Chiefs game, with the Chiefs blowing out the Raiders. At this point, the biggest competitor that the Steelers have is the Oakland Raiders, and they blew it the other day. And I understand that, it's not over until it's over. But if I had to make a very solid, confident guess right now, I would say that final spot goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I think having the Steelers take that last spot is probably the safest bet as of right now, unless a shock comes from somewhere. But I think the Steelers are looking pretty good to get that last wild card spot, and for the hopes of all Steelers fans, I hope that they get it.
Oh yeah, you're looking at it right now. Duck's the Steelers fan, and I'm pretty sure he's probably just nodding his head right now, being like, yep.
That's exactly what he's doing. He's saying, tell me about it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I'm looking at it right now of who the Steelers still have to play. again, like you said, it's not over till it's over. The next game that they play will be against the Arizona Cardinals. I feel like that is a game that the Steelers are capable of winning. The game that they play afterwards is against the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills. That might be a tough one. I'm not going to say outright that the Bills are going to take that, but it will be an interesting game. The following game is against the New York Jets. Moving on. The last game is probably the one that I think Pittsburgh fans are the most worried about because it will be against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. But at the very least, I would say, but another thing that I want to bring up with that, though, is generally in the last, say, 1 or 2 weeks leading up to the postseason, coaches like to rest their starters. You could very well have the possibility of the Ravens have clinched their position as the number 1 seed in the AFC, that they might just decide to rest Lamar Jackson and give that W to the Steelers. So I'm just saying, yes, you're right. It's not over till it's over, but it's have a good chance. Oh,
I think with that last game, that is what the Steelers need to pray for, is that the Ravens decide to rest their star quarterback, rest a lot of their starters, if they clinch. I think the Steelers, which is weird to say because they are rivals, I think the Steelers are hoping that the Ravens clinch that number 1 seed from the rest of the AFC and rest all of their starters. That way the Steelers can go in and hopefully pick up an easy win to get them into the playoff spot.
Yep, I would say that's likely, but we don't know for sure. And Duck, you brought up this question right here, and I'll just read it out loud, but you're right. I'm not going to go into it just yet because we have a section later where we'll kind of bring it up. Shane, he asked, will Lamar Jackson have a solid career, putting up similar stats as this year, or will he suffer injuries and decline down the line due to his style of play? Shane, we definitely should discuss this when we go into our For the Fun topic.
Yes, we will definitely cover it. I don't want to say anything because I know if I start saying something now, I'm going to say too much, and that won't have anything for later. But that is definitely a good point, and I'm excited to talk about that when we get to our For the Fun.
I think, yeah, definitely, because I think that definitely does address the future of will Lamar Jackson continue to be the next dominant quarterback of the NFL. But Shane, the last few games that we need to address really quickly. Shane, I'm going to let you take the reins on this one in that really ugly-looking Jaguars versus Buccaneers game. You need to kind of discuss here what is going on with Jacksonville for the rest of the season. Go ahead.
Jaguars versus Buccaneers. I predicted 20-17 Jaguars. I didn't think it was going to be... I didn't think the Jaguars would come out and dominate. I thought it was going to be an ugly win, and it came out as a 28-11 Buccaneers win. And I want to say, Foles came out, and people, when Foles got injured, everyone was depressed, and we're like, oh, all our season's done. Minshew came in and salvaged the season, going 4-4 as a starter. They pull Minshew out, which I disagreed strongly with. And if you watch some of our past podcasts, you will see me disagreeing strongly with that. They put Foles in.
You were practically yelling into the microphone, don't take Minshew out. But anyway.
Here's my reason why, and I'll get to it. So Foles has come in as a starter. As a starter for this team, he went 0-4. Is Foles bad? I will say no. I think Foles is really good. Is he bad with the way the Jaguars are running their scheme and with their offensive line? Yes. This is the reason why I said don't put Foles in. Minshew did good because Minshew is a mobile quarterback. Foles is a very pocket-heavy pass quarterback. And our offensive line holds the defensive line for maybe about 1.5 seconds before it completely collapses. Foles for this game turned the ball over 3 times he turned the ball over on the first 3 opening drives of this game, which 2 of them immediately led to Tampa Bay scoring.
Just a little statistic in there. The last time a quarterback did this was Mike Glennon's brief stint with the Chicago Bears in 2017. This does not happen that often, and it was pretty ugly to see that. Just so our listeners know.
Especially from a Super Bowl MVP, and I think that's what blows everyone out. So they're keeping him in until the half, and here's why I feel so bad for Foles. I do not blame him. I blame the coaches, and I blame the offensive line. The offensive line is not doing their job. The coaches, they don't know what they're doing half the time, in my opinion. But they kept him in until the half. The crowd started chanting Minshew. They come out back into the half. Minshew comes out as the starter, and they outscore the Bucs 11-3 in that second half. Not enough to get the job done. But I'm just imagining, if Minshew played that entire time, we probably could have won that. We could have still been a good, solid race within the AFC South. And he's been named the starter for the foreseeable future. And one of the things that I think we talked about is Foles done. Foles done in general? No. Is Foles done in Jacksonville? I want to say no because I know that he can do really well. But we need new coaching and new offensive line. And by that time, I think he's going to hit that Tom Brady level of slowness where he may as well just retire. So I think for right now, we're just kind of hoping he either retires to relieve us of some cap, or we are able to trade him off and take less of a hit.
I think you hit it right on the head there. I don't really need to say any more about it, but because you really covered it all.
I know my team, and I know what we should and should not do.
Yeah, it's a sad state that's going on in Jacksonville. And you really hope that the biggest thing, Shane, is I really hope you guys are able to address your quarterback situation and find someone there that can really do good things for the team. I mean, I understand that the Chicago Bears, my team, is facing the same issue. I hope that Gardner Minshew is able to, bring about a foreseeable and bright future for Jacksonville. Because otherwise, I don't know what that franchise is going to do.
I mean, he doesn't even have to be like Tom Brady level, but like if he can be at least like top 10, I can definitely see the Jaguars making strong playoff runs with him. He's agile, he's accurate, he's smart. He just needs a little bit more time in the NFL to help prevent some things and help clean up some of his rookie mistakes, but he goes out and comes back the next week better and better and learning from his mistakes. But let's move on because I'm going to drool all over this. Raiders versus Chiefs. I say 35-12 Chiefs. Final score is 40-9 Chiefs. What are your thoughts on this game?
We can move on from this one really quickly, Shane, because we already covered it. The Raiders probably just messed up their playoff chances big time there, kind of paved the way for the Steelers to get in there. I don't know if I really want to talk about it more. I understand that Derek Carr is kind of under a lot of pressure right now. It seems like a lot of the Raiders fan base wants to move on from him. At this point, I don't know if I want to say that that's the right move. I just want to I think, Shane, we can probably move on to the next game. We just chalk this up as to the Raiders, you blew it big. Good win for the Chiefs. Do better next week. You know what I mean?
And let's kind of try to speed run some of this because we are starting to run low on time and we got to make predictions still and got to discuss our for the fun. Patriots versus Texans. I said 24-21. Texans with the upset. Final score 28-22. Texans made the upset. Watson had a good night. Patriots, like I've been telling you guys, Tom Brady is not looking that good. McKay, I actually sent you something that made you laugh a little bit, saying that, what was it, like the past 4-6 games, your quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, since week 4, your quarterback has technically been a little bit better than Tom Brady.
Which is, that's bad, clearly. And I understand that, a lot of people are very excited about this because it seems like it's the downfall of the Patriots. I'm going to try and be the voice of reason, Shane, here. And I'm going to just say this right here, and I hope no one comes after me because they know I'm not a Patriots fan. But do not count the Patriots out until we see them down in the ground in the playoffs.
I will agree with you. I will say Patriots as a team, still really good. Tom Brady is probably like one of their biggest difficulties right now, and it's not even that he's terrible. He's just he's starting to hit that time where he might need to start retiring.
Absolutely. Last thing before we go into the last game we need that we're going to go over before we go into our predictions. Vikings versus Seahawks. Again, really good game. Really good Monday night football game. Shane, you said 34-31 Seahawks. Final score 37-30 Seahawks. You got it pretty close, bud.
I've been doing I did pretty good over Thanksgiving.
I agree. I think the biggest thing that we just need to talk about here is the change up in the seeding. With this, the Seahawks do claim the number 2 seed and control the NFC West, while the San Francisco 49ers move to the wild card seed. We kind of already talked about the situation with the Vikings and the Packers. I don't know if anything is necessarily going to change between those two teams. It's more just we're going to have to see during the rest of the season if maybe the switch might happen again and maybe the San Francisco 49ers will be up on top. We'll just have to see. At this point, Shane, I'm thinking the Seahawks are going to stay with that number 2 seed.
All I got to say, it's going to be a full-on bloodbath between these two teams for that guaranteed NFC West title at the very end of the day.
I absolutely agree with you. It's been real neck and neck with those two, and they still have one more game that they need to play before they, have the possibility of seeing each other in the playoffs, and that's going to determine quite a bit.
Yep, but I think that'll move us out from what we said. So let's do predictions. Let's just run through this pretty fast. Cowboys versus Bears. I believe you
Thursday
said.
Night.
What would you say?
Sorry, what? Oh, I was saying this is a Thursday night football game.
Oh, yeah. Cowboys versus Bears. Thursday night football. Who you got?
Don't at me. I got the Cowboys.
Hey, I'm not going to at you for the main reason. The past few times you have said Cowboys, they have lost every single time. And I think we got a good flow going on. You pick the Cowboys, they lose. I will pick whoever goes against them and they win. I'm going to go with the Bears. I'm going to say final score. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be... Oh...
It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. With Amari Cooper having injuries, with Dallas trying to reel after this ugly Bills loss, and the Bears still quite not finding their rhythm, or at least we just haven't seen it yet, unless they play a really awful team like the Lions, it's going to be bad.
Yeah. Final score, I'm going to say, is 20-13.
You know what? I'll take those odds, but I will say in favor of the Cowboys. I know this hurts because the Bears are my team and the Cowboys are my least favorite team, but I feel like I need to be realistic here, and my gut instinct is telling me that the Cowboys are gonna take this one.
Well, someone should tell your gut that it's gonna be wrong. Anyways, Colts versus Buccaneers.
Hey. If I am wrong, I will gladly eat crow. And I will eat that crow with my number 34 Walter Payton jersey on.
All right. Colts versus Buccaneers. Who you got on this one?
I'm going to go... You know what? I'm going to go with the Buccaneers, actually. But I'm going to say it's another close game. I'm going to say the final score is going to be 26-21.
You know, I want to go with the Buccaneers, but I'm going to go with the Colts on this one for the main reason Colts are fighting to get back into that playoff race. I think the Colts are going to come out and try to give it everything that they got because this is a do-or-die situation for them that's turning into. I'm going to say Colts take it. I'm going to say it's going to be 17-10.
Okay, cool.
All right, Ravens versus Bills. Oh
yeah,
man,
I got Baltimore. I love Josh Allen. I love how the Bills are doing good things, but I got Baltimore on this one, with the score being 30-14. Actually, you know what? 30-13 because I'm pretty sure Stephen Hauschka is going to miss one of his extra points.
You know, I'm going to go with the Ravens on this one. I'm going to say it's going to be... Oh, I don't want to say it's going to be close, actually, or a little closer. You said 30-13? I will say 32-17.
Okay. Viable. Absolutely.
Lions versus Vikings.
Okay, who's next? It's even a question. But the
Yes.
Lions so backed up with quarterback problems. Yeah, I'm going to give Kirk Cousins and Mike Zimmer that W. That score is going to be 32-14.
Whew. I'm gonna say it's a little bit lower. I agree with you, Vikings winning it, but I'm gonna say final score is gonna be 28-12.
Okay. And then after that, who's next up?
Redskins and Packers.
Go Pack, go. No, I don't. Judging by the way that the Packers played against the Giants, I'm going to say that the final score will be 20-13.
You know, I'm gonna say the Packers are gonna take it. They need a good rebound. Because I think they're still feeling that 49ers tough break game.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the Packers are going to take it. They did well against Giants. Oh, you said 24-14? You said 24-14 for Vikings and Lions? Or Packers and Redskins?
Well, I said 20-13.
20-13. I'm going to say 24-14.
Okay.
All right. And then Broncos versus Texans.
Texans. Final score 28-17.
You know what? I think I'll agree with you on everything with that. Texans 28-17.
All right. Good stuff.
49ers versus Saints. This is going to be a good match.
This will be the game of the week, if you ask me. And I got the 49ers on this one.
You know what? I'm going to go with the Saints. Just to be different, I'm going to go with the Saints.
I'll go with the 49ers. Again, close game. I'm saying final score 28-24. Actually, 27-24.
See, I'm knocking it down a little bit more. 24-21.
All right. With the Saints taking it, and I said the 49ers take it.
I'm saying the Saints, but we'll see about that one, because that's going to be good. Bengals versus Browns.
You know what? With that one, it could go either way. It really could.
I think it's going to come down to what was with the 49ers and the Ravens. It's going to come down to the very end with that field goal.
It will be, mind you, it will be played in the Superdome, so you could be very well right that the Saints will win.
All right, and Bengals versus Browns. I think we both discussed Bengals are going to win it.
What?
Not much of a question here. The only question here is, what's the score?
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I got the Browns on this one.
What?
I've got the final score being 21-10.
Wow, you're saying the Bengals are going to drop it big?
I'm not saying the Bengals, man. I'm saying the Browns win this.
No, you're saying the Bengals drop, as in the Bengals lose.
Oh, yeah, I do. I do say that.
I think it's going to be a lot closer, and I think the Bengals are going to win it. I'm going to say it's going to be 24-17.
My only concern with that, Shane, is if the Bengals do win this one. Now, again, I don't – I hate the word tanking. But I feel like if the Bengals are still trying to do that, if they win this game, then the first round pick might go to the New York Giants. So I feel like they don't want to really risk that situation.
Well, yeah,
but I could be wrong.
Wants the Giants to succeed.
Well, I'm just saying more. I don't feel like the Bengals want to give up a good first round pick if like to the Giants. But again, you never know.
I mean, you make a fair point. I'm mainly saying this as I think the Bengals are going to do we accidentally won.
And you could be right, and that would be very embarrassing. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals did win that. Then I'd say Freddie Kitchens is out as Browns coach.
Ironically, you win a game and Browns, Freddie Kitchens, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I was going to say. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, yeah, I agree with you. Anyways, Panthers versus Falcons.
I want to go with the Falcons.
I'm going to go with the Panthers. I think McCaffrey's going to light it up a little bit more, and Kyle Allen will hopefully figure his life out. Oh, I'm gonna say 27-24.
20-14.
All right. Dolphins versus Jets. Oh, I hate watching the
Dolphins.
AFC East games.
Dolphins. I got the Dolphins.
I Okay, give me a second. I need to.
You need
Huh?
to get inoculated before you watch this game. You need to have a puke bowl or something.
Don't watch this game, people. Just do something else. Anything but this. Uh, I'm gonna say Jets. This sounds so
Get
pathetic.
this.
This sounds pathetic. I'm going to laugh if this happens. Final score 12-9.
Oh, I was gonna say 14-9.
Here's my thing. I'm not even counting on touchdowns with that score. I'm counting on solely field goals.
Oh, please no. Okay, let's go on. Oh, God.
That's what went through my mind when I thought of this game.
Yep. All right, next.
Chargers versus Jaguars.
I got the Jags.
Oh, this is hard because lately my boys have been proving me wrong and wrong and wrong. With Minshew starting, I feel more confident. I'm gonna say that I feel more confident, but the Chargers do have a good record against the Jaguars. I'm gonna say, as much as I hate to say this, Chargers gonna win. 21-20, because our head coaching will be like, oh hey, we can win the game or we can go over in time. We're gonna try to win the game and then we miss it.
I'm gonna say 21-17. Jaguars win it.
All right. Chiefs versus Patriots.
You know, I'm gonna go. Oh, this is hard. What the heck? I'm gonna say the Chiefs win.
I will agree with you that the Chiefs win.
Let's say the final score is 21-16.
You know, I think the Chiefs are going to do a little bit better. I say the Patriots will stick at 16, but the Chiefs will get 28.
I'm gonna say 21 just because I know how the Patriots defense can be.
That's true. All right. Titans versus Raiders.
Titans.
I'm going to go with the Raiders on this one. Both fighting for a wild card. I think the Raiders might want to try to get it.
24-21 is my pick.
I'll agree with you on that, except other teams. Steelers versus Cardinals.
Pittsburgh all the way. Final score is 28-13.
I'm going to say 28-14 with the Steelers taking it.
And our Sunday night, Seahawks versus Rams, NFC game, or NFC West game,
Is this a question? Is this a legit question on who's going to win this?
It's the Seahawks.
Yeah.
The final score being 31-20.
I'm going to say 35-17.
Okay. And our last one before we go into our For the Fun topic, Giants versus Eagles. Shane, fly Eagles, fly. This is going to be a bad, ugly dumpster fire game. But the Eagles are Giants are so awful.
What? Why is this a Monday night game? You have so many other games you can play on Monday night, but you put the Giants and the Eagles.
Only
Why?
because it is a divisional matchup.
Nobody cares if it's a divisional matchup. Put a game people want to watch, not a game where only two fan bases care about.
Are we sure the Giants even care? The fan base even cares anymore?
No, we're not. So maybe 1.5 fan bases.
Maybe half of the Eagles fan base.
We put two halves together and we get one whole fan base at this game.
And with that, the final score is going to be 24-14 Eagles.
I will agree with you on that. My goodness, let's move out of there and into For the Fun.
The best game of the week, we said it before, is going to be the 49ers and the Saints.
Ugh. You're going to say 49ers and the Saints. Oh. You know, I'm just looking over everything real quick. 49ers and Saints will probably... I'm going to pick 3, mainly because I can't decide. 49ers, Saints, Ravens and Bills, Chiefs and Patriots.
Yep, yeah.
Anyways, let's move on to For the Fun.
All right, this will be the thing that we wrap up. Everyone, this is going to be pretty fun. I'm actually looking forward. This is the thing that I've been looking forward the most here. This is going to be mine and Shane's pre-playoff awards. So before we even get into the NFL awards, before we even get into playoffs, Shane and I have picked our top 3 picks for several different award categories. The most valuable player, the defensive player of the year, the rookie of the year, and the coach of the year. So we have picked our top 3 with some honorable mentions that we have mentioned in some of the categories. And we are going to basically decide who is the most viable candidate in each of the categories. So to kick it off, likely no surprise, we are starting with the MVP candidates. For me, I'll start with mine. My top 3 probably goes without saying. Number 1 is Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
Number 2 is Russell Wilson. I mean, we already know they're the front runners for this MVP race anyway. My third, I understand that a lot of people have had their eyes on Christian McCaffrey and think he could be a good MVP candidate, but I'm going to say my third pick is Deshaun Watson, with Christian McCaffrey being put down as my honorable mention. I say that just because I feel like to be a good, viable MVP candidate, you got to have a winning record. The Panthers do not have that right now. Shane, your thoughts?
My thoughts, and I will say this, so I'm going to give my top 3 and then I'll give my thoughts. My top 3, Lamar Jackson, number 1. Russell Wilson, number 2. Agree with you on both of those. I'm going to say Christian McCaffrey coming in at number 3, with my honorable mention being Aaron Rodgers. MVP, here's the thing. I think everybody knows this pretty well by now. MVP is basically a quarterback award.
Yep, and I think you and I are in agreement of who we think is going to get it this year.
Lamar.
Absolutely. Russell Wilson could maybe, but I feel like the only thing that would maybe change people's minds about Russell Wilson getting it over Lamar Jackson is if Russell Wilson were to beat Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. But guess what? Oh, the MVP award is decided before playoffs even happen.
But let's discuss real quick Duckmaster's comment from earlier that pertained to Lamar Jackson having a solid career, putting up similar stats as this year, or will he suffer injuries and decline down the line due to a style like RG3? What are your thoughts on that personally? Like, do you think Lamar Jackson's going to continue to prosper, or do you think he's going to hit that big decline?
The best way for me to put it, Shane, into words is I feel like he is going to continue to put up good numbers, but I don't think he's going to have as amazing of a season as he did in this current one. I feel like he just has the right formula going on right here, and he has a lot of momentum on his side. So I feel like the numbers will still be good, but I don't know if he's going to be able to do what he did this year. So it might be considered a decline, but not a big decline. That's how I feel.
See, I think he's actually going to do pretty well, as we have seen in the past with people like RG3, even Cam Newton. We have seen these like really fast quarterbacks that like to do a lot of the groundwork on their own, but eventually they get hit too many times and they start to slow it down and they start to dial it back. I think that he will do good for his first couple of years. After that, if he doesn't learn how to be more conservative when he runs, I think that he could be in a potential area where RG3 was really, really good when he came in, but he got injured and has never been the same since then. And that's my fear for Lamar Jackson.
You know what? And another thing to consider too, Shane, is the game continues to evolve. And defenses and offenses catch on to what is going on. Case in point, this is on the defensive player of the year side of things. Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, both former defensive players of the year, or even J.J. Watt from years before, kind of quiet this year, all three of them, because offenses have learned you've got to double team those guys so that they can't sack the quarterback. In this case, defenses are going to catch on of, we got to do this to stop Lamar Jackson. They're going to continue to improve. The game is going to continue to evolve. And I agree with you that if Lamar Jackson doesn't change something or is more conservative, in this case with his running and gunning, there are going to be consequences.
Yep. And I just want to say Duckmaster gave his MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year. We'll get to those after we cover ours. But MVP, he agrees with us on Lamar Jackson. I think a lot of people are in agreement that Lamar Jackson is looking to be MVP. The only thing that I'm worried about him and Russell Wilson is whoever gets on the Madden cover next year, man, they are going to be in for a tough time.
I think you're right.
All right. So let's move on to our next one. What is it? Defensive player?
Mine is my top three. My number one is a lot different than what I think a lot of the experts are putting out there. My number one pick is actually Jadeveon Clowney from the Seattle Seahawks. I think that guy's just a wrecking ball.
Oh, he is.
The Vikings forgot to guard him one time, and what did he do? He bowled in there and stopped them dead in the water. I mean, that guy is good. I understand that he's probably not going to get it, but he is my number one. My number two is Stephon Gilmore. That guy has been an amazing cornerback, just having a great season. My third pick, because I feel like he has been the key piece in turning the Steelers season around.
Is it Minkah Fitzpatrick that you're thinking of?
Yeah, did it cut out? That's
it
what I
cut
said.
out a little bit on you.
Yeah. Yes, Minkah Fitzpatrick is my third pick.
Which, I mean, Duckmaster will agree. He agrees with you. Defensive Player of the Year, Stephen Gilmore. My picks are all different. My number one pick actually goes to T.J. Watt, who's been pretty dominant, followed up by Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's also been good, and then I have Stephen Gilmore to round it out.
So Shane, between all of our picks, who do we think is most deserving of, I guess you could say, for the fans Defensive Player of the Year award?
I mean, for the fans, I think we're going to have to give the advantage to the fans, and since Duckmaster is chiming in with these comments, Defensive Player of the Year, and we both said this man, Stephen Gilmore might take it this year.
I think he has a lot of votes for it, and he has been a very excellent presence in keeping the Patriots alive, because as we know, they've kind of fallen off the edge when it's come to their offense, but their defense is still really holding strong, and I think you're absolutely right. Stephon Gilmore, he's the guy. So I think that kind of answers that question. Lamar Jackson is our MVP winner. Stephon Gilmore is our Defensive Player of the Year.
All right. And I don't think we did Offensive Player of the Year, did we?
We didn't. I think we were kind of just trying to keep it together because there's other awards we could have put in there. We could have gone for Assistant Coach of the Year. That might be something that we go into in the future. But I noticed that Doug did say that Christian McCaffrey is the Offensive Player of the Year. You know what?
I'll agree with it.
I agree with it. I don't have a problem with that.
I'm not going to argue with that. That's pretty sound logic to me. So let's move on to Rookie of the Year candidates. You go ahead because everybody's going to laugh at mine.
My number one pick is Nick Bosa. My number two is Josh Jacobs, who's the running back for the Oakland Raiders. My number three is Kyler Murray, who is the first-round pick, the very first guy, quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. It's really interesting. I kind of want to switch this around, and I almost say that I want to put Josh Jacobs as my number one because I think he has been something that has really been the thing that has been keeping Oakland's offense going. But at the same time, Nick Bosa has been a dominant force for the defense, the number one ranked defense for the San Francisco 49ers. That's all I'm going to say. Shane, go ahead with your picks. Yeah, okay. I know. I laugh at him too.
Everybody's going to laugh. Go ahead. Bring it in. My number one is Josh Allen from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not the Bills quarterback, the defensive
Josh Allen.
The other Josh Allen. This is another Gridiron Heights episode from this season. In all honesty, the reason I put him up here, he's at 9 sacks for this season, which beats the Jacksonville Jaguar rookie sack record of all time. He's actually been just as solid, if not better than Nick Bosa on paper, which is one of the reasons why I put him at number one. He's been explosive. He's been basically everything the Jaguars defense could have asked for when we got him. Our second pick is my second pick is Gardner Minshew.
Oh my gosh.
The Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback. Hear me out. Before everybody starts hating on me, hear me out. The reason I put him, he's had 2 bad games. Which the first game I think he threw an interception against the Chiefs. That was his first ever time in the NFL, so I forget that completely. The other time I think is when we played the Saints and he turned the ball over a fair amount. That was a bad game, and honestly, the Saints are a really good team, and our offensive line is abysmal. Other than that, though, he has put up strong numbers. He came into games really strong. He electrified the offense. He electrified the defense. He kept the Jacksonville Jaguars alive and relevant. When he got benched for Foles, the offense just kind of died. It felt like the team died on the inside. The fans died. Even fans not of the Jaguars died on the outside. He's already won a couple of Rookie of the Week awards from different fan voting things. I think that he is a silent dark horse contender in this race. Everybody go ahead and laugh at me for that. But he has put a breath of fresh air and life into this Jacksonville Jaguars team. That's one of the reasons I put him high, and he also did pretty solid with what he was working with on offense. My number 3 pick goes to Nick Bosa. There we go.
It almost seems like we can at least agree on Nick Bosa.
I mean, if I had to give some runner-ups, I would not say Kyler Murray is Rookie of the Year candidates, considering he's barely played this year, and he hasn't shown true flashes of brilliance. Which is why I would say, for quarterback, I'd rather put Gardner Minshew in. He's been fairly consistent. He came in week 1. He played pretty solid, went 4-4, got taken out, came back in, still doing pretty solid. So if I had to put a quarterback, I would say him.
I will agree with you on that. If we had to pick a quarterback for the Rookie of the Year award, I would pick Gardner Minshew over Kyler Murray as well. But I think in this case, and Duck chimed in on here too, he also picked Nick Bosa. It feels like it would fit. Like Nick Bosa should probably get our Rookie of the Year award.
I think it's going to happen just because everybody's expecting it and everybody's watching him. And I think it also comes down to what we talked about earlier. When you have a good record, it's a lot easier for you to shine as a player. But when you're a bad record, your stellar players kind of get overlooked a little bit.
This is true, which is why you're not really hearing much talk about Josh Jacobs or Kyler Murray or the 2 Jaguars players that you mentioned.
I like how that's how we're referring to them now.
Okay, fine. Josh Allen and Gardner Minshew. Gosh, happy?
Yes. You respect the stash. Respect it. All right. Coach of the Year.
This will be our last one. My top 3, and I also have 3 honorable mentions as well. I'm going to name off my honorable mentions first. My first honorable mention is Bill Belichick. My second honorable mention, John Harbaugh. And my number 1 honorable mention that almost fell into my top 3 is Kyle Shanahan. And actually, I'm going to put a 4th in there, and that's Matt LaFleur, the Packers' first-year head coach. But my true top 3, my number 3 that I have a pick is Mike Tomlin. And I understand that he's not really been talked about as a coach of the year, but I feel like
he turned around that team.
He righted the ship for that Pittsburgh Steelers team. And I think he needs to get looked at in some way for doing that. And so, I mean, that's why I have him in there. My second one is Sean Payton. I mean, he's doing great stuff with the New Orleans Saints. Usually, I feel like the New Orleans Saints would have been to a Super Bowl already if arguable pass interference calls or a Minneapolis Miracle hadn't stopped them. I mean, he's really good. My number 1 pick, however, though, for Coach of the Year is Pete Carroll. The Seahawks are doing great things. Pete Carroll continues to do good things, whether it was at USC or with Seattle. I mean, I got to go with him. Why can't you?
All right. I mean, I can agree with those. So I'm going to start with my honorable mentions as well. For my number 3, I'm actually going to throw Mike Tomlin in there. Because like you said, he did so much for this team. Like, let's take a moment to step back and respect everything that he has gone through and what he has come out with so far. He definitely deserves an award for that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's just go through it here. That embarrassing... Okay, no, we need to go back even further. Losing Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. Then that embarrassing loss to the Patriots at the beginning of the season, then losing Ben Roethlisberger to injury, then having to start Mason Rudolph, then having just several games that they lost, then having this Myles Garrett Mason Rudolph incident, then having to bench Mason Rudolph, and yet still they are contending for a playoff spot. Yeah, that's pretty admirable.
That is some amazing stuff. I think he definitely is in the running, but I don't think he beats out some of these other people. My number 2 for honorable mention was Bill O'Brien, the coach of the Houston Texans. Main reason I put him on the honorable mention list, he just beat Bill Belichick and the Patriots, which for a lot of teams has been hard to do for a long time. Even this season when Brady hasn't been at the top of his game, it's still been hard for teams to beat him. But he managed a way to get around it, and he's one of the few teams and the few people that have been able to beat the Patriots. My number 1 for honorable mention is Kyle Shanahan, the coach of the 49ers, because 49ers have been good. My top 3, starting at number 3, John Harbaugh of the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens have just been on fire. He's been doing some good stuff there. Sean Payton's my number 2, and then Pete Carroll is my number 1. Kind of the same as you, except my number 3 switches up from yours.
Exactly. I think we're in agreement here. Pete Carroll gets our Coach of the Year award. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And I think that about wraps up everything, unless there's something that you want to add. I mean, I'll give a little after spiel before we close everything out, but do you have anything that you want to add or any last comments for it?
Yeah, for those of you who are watching or listening in right now, and I know this also goes for the people that I do know don't tune in live but watch this after, because I know there are a fair amount of people who do that. You don't want to miss next week, whether it's live stream or you're watching it afterwards. Our For the Fun topic, I feel like, is going to be even more fun next week than it is this week, because right here we've done, okay, who's really good? Next year, or not next year, excuse me. Hello, where am I? Next week, we are going to be doing, I guess what you'd call the Razzies. We are going to be giving out the For the Fans awards for who absolutely blew it this season.
And we got great names for these awards. I wish we could actually make these people trophies and send it to them.
You know what? Let me pull this up really quickly, just so people can hear the names of the awards, and then they can put in their guests as well, because I'm gonna pat myself on the back here, Shane.
These were great. I want to say, since you made these, this made me so happy just to read the name of the awards.
The first award that we are going to give out here, we're not going to mention who the candidates are that we have picked, but we are going to mention what the names of the awards are. The first one is the award for Worst Quarterback of the Year, which is known as the Johnny Manziel Award.
I don't know if anybody remembers him, but if you do, you will understand why we named it this.
Defensive player candidates. Whoever we pick in the end will win the Mason Rudolph Helmet Award. I'm going to go to the next one. The coach candidate, the Worst Coach of the Year Award. We call that the Take Me Out Coach Award. And then my personal favorite, and again, we might throw some others in there if people want to have, if they have submissions for that. But this is my personal favorite because there's been so many of them this season. The Worst Kicker Award, which we call the award. I love this so much.
I'm sorry, I'm trying not to laugh because the reason why I find this funny is because it's named after your team.
I mean, it's become a viral sensation with just how terrible that moment was. So I just think it fits so well. It's the Double Doink Award.
Oh man, we got some. Yeah, like we said, it's going to be a fun week next week. We got all these categories. And I mean, if you guys have your own categories for similar things, submit those category names to us and what they're for, and we can look it over. And we can, if you guys get it before us next week, we can probably scrap everything together and throw it into our For the Fun topic next week.
Easily. But yeah, you could even put it to us the day of the podcast, just as long as it's I don't know, probably done before like 3:00 Mountain Standard Time.
Yeah, don't give it to us like 30 minutes to an hour beforehand, because I'm going to be like, ha ha, yeah, I don't have time for that. I do all the technical work. I do most of the technical work for this, because you put together a lot of the outlines, which is, I think I want some of the fans to know. You do a lot of like the outlines and like laying everything out. I just run a lot of the technical stuff behind the scenes while also commentating, so it works, and it's really good, and I actually really like it, because if I had to do the outline fully like you do while running this, oh, that would be a nightmare on my head.
Essentially, like you said, you're handling all the technical stuff, making sure it looks pretty, and I'm just the one who pretty much outlines for what we're going to be saying, what we're going to be talking about. And it's a good system. It works out well, and I'm really pleased with how well it's been turning out over these past 6 episodes. And we're also really pleased with the people who have been watching. Again, another thing, too, is we get comments on here. We appreciate comments from people like Duck or from other people who have said something to us later. Most of the time, I also get stuff from people later who are like, hey, tell me about this thing that you talked about the other night. We really appreciate the feedback. We really appreciate some of the comments that we've been getting. This has been a lot of fun, hasn't it, Shane?
Oh, this is honestly one of my favorite things to do. It's something that I look forward to every Tuesday night. Like, just to let everybody know, I've had a long, rough day. I didn't get much sleep last night. I've been at work and then doing school. Basically, all the way up until the podcast, and then right when we log off, I'm going back to doing schoolwork till probably 11:30 to midnight tonight, just trying to get everything done. This is something I look forward to. It's something I enjoy. I love talking football, love talking with you, love talking to the people that chat in, which, even if you don't know football a whole lot, feel free to chat in. I have pretty good confidence that even if you don't know too much about football, either us or people in chat, because Duckmaster's here pretty often. He's pretty good at chatting in with us. But I'm pretty sure somebody will try to explain something either you don't understand or people that you don't know, because I'll admit, there are teams that I know very, very little about, and I don't know too much about them. I don't talk too much about them because I don't know too much of them, and I'm trying to get better, trying to get to know everybody, and trying to study up more.
Agreed, I'm the same way.
But that's what is like the great thing about this podcast, that like I'm a Jaguar fan, you're a Bears fan, Duckmaster is a Steelers fan. Like, that's 3 teams out of 32, and I'm sure that we could get a Patriots fan, a Ravens fan, a 49ers fan. Like, we can get. Oh, and I also have one of my buddies who's a Panthers fan. We have like a good variety of fans from every team with different takes on every single little spot, and that's what's the fun thing is about it.
Cowboys fans, sorry.
Not
allowed.
Cowboys fans, you guys have officially been banned. Sorry, I hate to do that to you. Hate to do that to people who love football. But do you truly love football if you're a Cowboys fan?
I'm pulling a James Dolan here, and I am banning you from Madison Square Garden. No, you don't get to come on here. You guys are so obnoxious. I'm just kidding. No.
You guys can come, and you guys can say, here, I will say that they can come. But if they start spamming the chat with "We dem boys," they get the ban.
Yeah, no
they will
kidding.
get the ban at some point for doing that nonstop, because I'm not dealing with that.
All right.
But
all right, again, thanks everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
Yep, thanks for tuning in, guys. I mean, follow us on Twitter for updates. I'm trying to get better with the Twitter thing and just posting more with it. Just lately, it's finals week, so that's a nightmare for me. But follow us on Twitter. We will post like when we're about to go live, and I usually give like a little bit of a preview of what we're going to be talking about, just to kind of get you guys interested, see what you guys want, what you don't want. Comment on there if you guys are like, hey, I want to see this. Hey, I want to see this. Or if you guys scroll down on Twitch, we have our link to our Discord. You can jump in there, create an account, super easy. Good way, join in on all the chats. We're going to start posting everything. We'll post everything from our For the Fun topics and just everything like that. We'll try to post updates when we can with there. But that's a good way to follow us. Also, if you have YouTube or prefer to watch YouTube, I would recommend, if you're watching YouTube, go to twitch.tv, find our channel, For the Fans Podcast. Super easy. Look for our classic logo, which is actually really nice that McKay put together, and it looks really, really good.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. find that logo, click on it, click on the little heart at the very, very top, or it might be on the bottom if you're watching on a computer. Just look for a heart that will allow you to follow, and once you do that, you'll be able to tune in with us, you'll be able to get notified of when we're going live, and even just coming in chat, it'll be lots of fun.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, well, I guess we will see everybody next week when we cover Week 7, and man, we're getting close to the end of the regular season, so it's going to be a very exciting time in the NFL right now.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll see you next week, guys, and hope you have a good night.
Take care. Good night, everyone.